Hello everyone, welcome to Tuesday Tea Time with Elsa. We have Cleo over one shoulder here, and then over the other shoulder we have the interesting pair, which is Myrna and the thoroughbred Can-Do, eating from the same hay net on the other side of the fence. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about socialization, because I've found that my Mustangs that grew up in the wild are very different from the horses that have grown up in the domestic world, particularly the horses like race horses that grew up in stalls and intense domestic routines with people. So we have my daughter's thoroughbred Can-Do living with us for a couple of months before she heads east to Florida. And I've not put Can-Do in the same paddock with Myrna and Cleo. Nice to see you too, Kristen. And wonderful to see you too, Laurence. So this is an interesting thing for me because I like having horses together. I think they are herd animals. They do better when they're together. And Can-Do, the thoroughbred, is a little bit hard to keep weight on. She eats better when she has a friend to eat with. Hello, Sina. So what I have here is I've set up hay nets where they are on the fence and the horses can share, but they can't hurt each other. And I find this is one of those things that's really, really beneficial to herd dynamics. This ability to share food and not get irritated or stressed by the behavior from the other horse. And this is something that comes up a lot when you mix cultures. Okay, so the thoroughbreds that were generally raised on the track and have done a lot of racing and a lot of domestic work are going to have very different ways of communicating than the Mustangs that grew up out on the range in the wild. And this sort of interaction between them, you can see Myrna got a little bit close and she pinned her ears, and Can-Do just left. Oh, sorry, that was Cleo. I'm mixed up with sides of the fence. Okay, so Cleo came over and pinned her ears and Myrna left. Let's see if we can see them here. And now Can-Do is shuffling around a little bit there. She's wondering if she's allowed to keep eating hay or not. And this is, it's an interesting little dance. If they were in together, it's likely that, somebody would get kicked or bitten because they didn't respond in exactly the right way. So here, Myrna's going to come ask if she can share with Cleo. And they're really good friends, but Cleo is very much more dominant than Myrna. So Cleo gets her pick of the hay, and Myrna can share if she is polite. And Myrna is not always polite. So there's some rules about sharing. Now what I've noticed about, let's see, is Can-Do around anymore? Oh yes, Can-Do is, I'm gonna move so you can see here. We actually have all three of them sharing the same hay net now. So Can-Do, the thoroughbred, is on the other side of the fence. Myrna and Cleo are on this side of the fence. Why, when there's two nets with exactly the same hay, would they all want to eat out of the same one? And I think it's because horses are social creatures. They want to do things together, but they also have social expectations. So you can see Myrna's pinning her ears. She doesn't like what Can-Do just chose to do. She doesn't like the way Can-Do acts. She doesn't like the way Can-Do moves or doesn't move. And it makes her angry, brings her stress up. But with a fence between them, Myrna can yell all she wants without actually causing harm to the horse on the other side of the fence. And so, this way of letting horses interact with a fence between them, I find is really, really helpful for building social bonds between cultures. Can-Do has a very different way of thinking and acting than the Mustangs do. And the Mustangs have a very different way of thinking and acting. It doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. It just means that, generally speaking, if I put a bunch of thoroughbreds in together, they're going to work out their differences very quickly. If I put a bunch of Mustangs in together, they're going to work out their differences very quickly. What I find is when you mix them, it's much more challenging. And this is an interesting thing to think about for us as, you know, good horse keepers. It's interesting, Candu's gone over to the empty hay net. She decided that it was a little easier to eat without the other horses. And what I hope is that they change things up. They try one thing, they try another thing. Without anybody getting hurt or scared, they get to play with what communication looks like. If I look away at this moment, what does it do? If I look towards the other horse at this moment, what does it do? What's the feel and the timing that each horse needs? Yes, you're right, Christian. Candu has an abscess, so she is limping. Very good eye. Another reason not to have them together. She's recovering from an abscess she just got a couple of days ago, so it'll be a little while before that blows out in her hoof. And she does have one red bell boot on and one black bell boot on, which is kind of funny. So, you know, you guys are welcome to change the subject anytime you have a question. Tea time is not specifically directed. I just happen to talk about things that are interesting to me each week. But if you guys have questions or thoughts, feel free to put them in there. So, Candu's headed off to her shed. And she's going to eat. She has food in there too. Now, this is always an interesting issue for me with horses that don't eat very well. Some horses just don't have a big appetite, and to keep weight on them, sometimes a little bit of friendly social interaction is really helpful. And so if I can bring Myrna and Cleo over to share some hay, Candu has a lot more options of alfalfa and all sorts of rich food in various places in her paddock, but she's more inclined to eat if her friends are eating too. She doesn't really understand her friends very well, but they're all the friends she's got in this particular situation. And so the point that I wanted to make is, you know, if you have horses that are really different from each other, if you can set up variations, let's see, Myrna's going to get really angry there. And that gives Candu some feedback. Myrna didn't like the decision she made, but it's feedback without any real injury happening. So if there's no injury and there's no pain and there's no fear, Candu has a chance to try things out. You know, if I stand this way, how does Myrna feel about it? If I move over there, how does Myrna feel about it? Speed, direction. So Cleo just got irritated with Myrna being irritated and told her to leave. And this is actually a fairly common occurrence. And, you know, it's one of the things that I think about. When I had these mares in full work, they were much more patient with each other. Now that they're essentially lawn ornaments for me while I do all of my work with the stallions, I watch them get irritated much more quickly. And, you know, I only have so many hours in a day. It's nothing terrible, but when stress goes up, you're going to see fight or flight. And what I find is when we are not using stress to learn things, when we are not working every day to learn new things, I see a little bit more fight and flight in the herd behavior. When I have time and these girls are in more full work, they are more patient with each other. And that's because of all the things we do to play with stress in a really positive way. They know each other really well. If there's a little fight between them, nobody gets hurt because they know how to navigate it. So Christian says, a short story about socialization. I wanted to protect my pony from another dominant one coming close. Before a bite, I could chase him away. My pony thought for 10 seconds and then ran after him for 50 meters to the hay stand, going to eat hay together with the dominant one. So that happens sometimes, you know, if you can add some sort of action that lowers stress, then the fight goes down and everybody can be better friends. It sounds like in this situation, Christian, you were able to, that act of protection actually made everybody in the herd feel better. Dominance is not bad. When you use dominance with the right feel and timing, and you put pressure on a horse in a way that makes them feel better, everybody feels better. I happen to train without dominance most of the time because it's interesting to me. I feel like my brain gets stretched when I try and think about what would happen if I tried to solve this problem without using extra pressure. And it doesn't mean it's the best way. It means it's the thing that's interesting to my brain. So yeah, I think, Christian, somehow you chasing or protecting your pony from that other horse lowered stress for them. And you know, that really is the goal. Whether you use more passive or supportive leadership like I'm apt to, or you use more dominant leadership like other trainers do, the goal is to cause horses to feel better. And then when they feel better, they socialize better. They help each other. So, you know, Myrna's at her hay net now. And Cleo's over here at her hay net. And Candu is on the other side. You can't really see her, but she's on the other side of Cleo, eating with Cleo. So, you know, just some food for thought for all of you who have herds of horses. The more you can set them up to interact with each other in a way where they try things out. If I do this, how does the horse feel about it? If I do that, how does the horse feel about it? If you have really different horses, it's helpful to keep a fence between them for a while until they understand each other better. And, you know, once they understand each other better, then you can put them in the same area and see if they are wise enough to interact without hurting or scaring each other. So those are my tea time thoughts today. If you guys have any particular concepts or theories or ideas you want me to chat about, make sure and let me know. I have an ongoing list that I look at every week, and I pull something that feels pertinent with what's going on with my horses, but I always love the suggestions. Yes, Christian, if you remove one horse from the herd, how does it change the situation? And if you add horses, how does it change the situation? I really love big herds. I think big herds are fabulous for teaching horses to interact really well, but they're challenging too. So in some situations, you know, if you make the herd smaller, a horse that's overwhelmed by too many horses or overwhelmed by a certain personality type, they all of a sudden can think better. And when they can think better, they can solve problems better. So, you know, it's fun to play with. But I guess my point today is, you know, don't be afraid to play with it with a fence between them. Watch their interaction over food. If you give them food, they can share. And that gives you some idea of whether it's going to be a good idea to put them in the same space, or how much time they need to adjust and figure each other out before they are in the same space. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day wherever you are. And Myrna says hello. Does Cleo and Candu, who's on the far side. I will talk to you guys next week on Tuesday.